Well, good morning, and I want to thank Deandra and the planning committee for the invitation. When I got the invitation, I got excited. Student engagement, student motivation, student learning are passions of mine. And it also, I saw it as an opportunity to kind of pull a bunch of different things together that I'd been thinking about for a while. And I was doing that, I also started to get a little nervous. For two reasons. One, when you do a talk, a workshop on active learning engagement, there's a certain expectation from the audience that they are actively engaged in the process. So that's a little nerve-wracking. Also, the fact that I knew I was coming to Elon, and I started thinking about context, and I know Elon, it thinks a lot about engaged learning, so much in fact that they have a center of engaged learning. So I thought, oh no. What can I possibly say to this group that would add to the conversation? And so I wanted to know a little bit more about the context, and I jumped on the Center for Engaged Learning's website, tried to say, what are they talking about? What are they doing? And I noticed a couple things. The first thing I noticed is they're doing some really interesting, innovative, leading-edge things around student engagement. That's really exciting. The second thing I noticed, or maybe didn't notice, is there's no definition on their website of engaged learning. And I thought, oh, okay. Maybe I can add something to this talk. And that, maybe I have a little room, a little freedom to do some things here. So, let's see. One of the things they do on their website, though, is they equate, or at least say there's a connection between engaged learning and what are known as high-impact practices, right? So things like student community engagement, study abroad, undergraduate research, and so on. And I certainly would agree with that. Those activities seem to lead to something unique that we might call student engagement. But at the same time, I find that a little dissatisfying and almost disheartening to think that all that precious time we spend in more traditional classrooms in a face-to-face setting often do not get lumped into what we call high-impact practices. And that's what I want to talk about today. How do we begin to transform, think about our courses in new ways that lead to the type of engagement that we might call high-impact? So to get us started, I thought I would help the center. Peter's sitting right here, so I'm looking. I thought we would help the Center for Engaged Learning with some social power, social media power, social cognitive power here, and see if we can define engaged learning. So take notes, Peter. You can add this to your website. So what I'd like you to do is, with some neighbors, see if you can't begin to define, describe, articulate what it means to do engaged learning. Take a few minutes to do that. I didn't give you a ton of time, but I'm wondering if you could share some words, phrases that came up in your conversation to describe, define engaged learning. Demonstrative, collaborative. Ah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so flow experience, a whole psychology around flow experiences. Interactive. Yeah, of course, yeah. Anything other than that, right? Yeah. Yeah, opposite. Joint meaning making, okay. Joint, which means it sounds like there's got to be people involved, multiple people, yeah. Agency, yes. Yeah, the learner has to do the learning, right? Yeah. Manipulation, so doing something with it. Yeah, getting your hands dirty. Okay. So it's not just the student being engaged, but the instructor needs to be engaged in that process. Investment. What kind of investment? Okay, so it's a personal investment. Focus without distraction. Okay, so there's a lot of things that kind of go into engaged learning. The Oxford English Dictionary defines engagement like this: the fact of being entangled. I kind of like that, right? Entangled learning. There's a ring to it. What's entangled? What is it? Well, it's a set of behaviors, right? Visible, observable behaviors. It's cognitive and affective behaviors, which are hard to observe, but it's part of it. But it's also students' ability to abstract and generalize and integrate. It's passion and its creativity and its exploration. It's a whole bunch of things entangled together. And it's that entanglement that, whatever all those things are, leads to deep learning, deep, significant, long-term learning. The type of learning that Dan and Chip Heath might call sticky. It's also kind of sticky. So it's this entanglement. As you were throwing out phrases and words, I'm guessing some of you picked up on the idea that, wow, this sounds a whole lot like motivation, right? There's so many elements of motivation. Why are there two different words? Why is there motivation and there's engagement, and what's different about them? I think you could argue that they're two sides of the same coin. Motivation, get my slide to advance. Motivation is something a student experiences when they're engaged. Engagement is something we observe when a student is motivated. Okay, so motivation is the thing intrinsic to the student. We observe it as engagement. And that's one of the reasons why engagement is so hard to study, because it's an observation. And we can't see all that cognitive and affective stuff going on inside the brain. We can't see the connections going. But there's a connection, so if we can understand a little bit of something about motivation, we begin to understand something about what engagement would look like. So let's talk a little bit about motivation. Motivation is not the theme of the talk, but I think it's helpful to have a context. And if you're interested in some of the ideas I talk about, there's other sessions today on motivation where you'll get a much deeper and richer discussion. There's a number of theories, I don't know, 50, 60 probably, that all say something about student motivation. Before we understand those theories, we probably need to understand a definition of motivation. And there's lots of variations of definitions of motivation, but I think the simplest one, and we actually heard it here through a couple of comments, and that is the personal investment a student is willing to make to reach some desired state or goal. A personal investment. That could be an investment of time, that could be an investment of energy, perseverance, all sorts of things. What does motivation do for us? Well, a couple things. Again, you're going to hear the similar comments were made. It allows us to focus on something. It allows us to keep that focus. It allows us to persevere when we encounter obstacles. And it allows us to monitor our own learning. Where are we at in the learning process? It allows us to become metacognitively aware. Right? So motivation is a powerful force in learning. And I'm often surprised that there's not a theory that actually tries to connect learning to motivation. They're always separate. But I don't see how you can actually separate motivation from it. I think one of the, if you categorize and say most influential theories, value expectancy kind of rises to the top. For one thing, if you understand value expectancy, it helps you understand, I don't know, like 90% of what's going on in terms of motivation. So it's a nice guiding theory. Other theories kind of fill in the nuance. Value. A student is motivated by what they value. What is important to them? Expectancy is, do I expect to succeed? I think it's pretty cool, though, because they don't actually have to succeed to be motivated. They just have to expect to succeed. That's pretty good. Notice there's a arithmetic symbol here, and that's multiplication. Multiplication is important because if one of these is 0, the whole thing is 0. So if I don't value a task, even though I can expect to succeed at it, I'm not motivated. And vice versa. So let's see. Anybody in here teach a difficult, challenging course? Maybe a course that has a reputation? You, yeah. What do you teach? What's your name? What's your name? Calc 2. What's your name? Todd. Todd Lee? Todd Lee. Okay, J. Todd Lee. Now you're pressing my memory to it. J. Todd Lee. You teach Calc 2. Okay. I used to teach Calc 2 also. Why would a student value Calc 2? That sounds really boring. Well, the truth is probably a little bit of both. Okay. Yes. Okay. Going to allow them to do other things. Gateway. What else? Why else? You haven't convinced me. I don't want to take your course. Why else should they? So, what is your poetic? What is your poetic? What could be better? Right? As you think about your courses and you think about why would a student value my course, why would they want to come and get entangled in what you teach? What are those reasons? What else? I'm going to open it up, see if there's other reasons why students would care about your courses. You have fun. Yeah. I can do something with it. It's meaningful. Yeah. Wow. Good job. There's an expected outcome to it. What's that? Creative expression. There's something about it that's cool and interesting and curiosity provoking. Yeah. I did it, right? That's a value. I was able to go a next step. I was able to learn Taylor series and all those other cool things. Skill set, right? So I'm building a skill set. So if you look at literature and you say, well, what do they say about what ways we could value learning experience? And you mentioned a number of those. Expected outcome, job, grade. Surprised nobody said that. Grade, a degree, all of those kinds of things are an expected outcome. Those are what we might call extrinsic motivators, and don't equate that with bad things, because extrinsic motivators are actually pretty good to get learning started. Now, you don't want that to be the end goal. We want to have students internalize that, but that extrinsic motivators. We can satisfy a need, right? A need to belong to a group, some affiliative needs, a need for praise, a need for demonstrated success, a need for lots of different things, a need for cognitive balance, right? This idea of you just rocked my world, and I need to bring that back into alignment, right? So there's lots of ways to satisfy a need. Curiosity, choice, control, all of these are things that I can use to add value to the course. And I'm saying it as if, you know, we can just say, oh, this is why you should value it. You can't tell students why they should value something. You have to discover it. They don't discover it often on their own. They discover it through some intentional act of ours in a classroom, a teaching setting, where we make that possible. I'm not going to talk so much about expectancy. Again, not to say it's not important. In fact, we could probably argue it's more important than value. But expectancy is, why would I expect to succeed? Past experience, peers succeed. I have a supportive environment from the instructor, so there's lots of ways we can affect expectations. Some researchers have kind of put together these kind of a grid of see what happens. If the student doesn't value the task, does not expect to succeed, well, we've seen what happens here. They kind of resist everything. They check out. They disentangle from all this. The student values the task, doesn't expect to succeed, right? Make excuses, pretend like they understand. The student who's in your office hours and they say, do you get it? And they say like this, and you're like, no, you don't. You have no idea what I just said, right? They don't value the task, but they can do it. Okay, bye. Minimum amount. Got to get out of here. Got to jump through the hoop. Can't wait for this course to get over so I can go do something more interesting. Only when the student values the task and expects to succeed do you get engaged learning. Is this dog engaged? I see some head nods. Remember, engagement is an observation. Our observation suggests it's engaged. Is it motivated? This is the key question. What is motivating it? What's that? I heard food. Surprisingly, the food is not the motivator. I know this for a number of reasons. We got a new puppy about 4 weeks ago. The little golden retriever puffball. His name is Odie, short for Odysseus. Odie is not the first golden retriever we've had. We've had 2 others, and my wife and I have trained all of our dogs. And one of the things you train dogs to do is to leave it. And there's really good reasons to train a dog to leave it because, you don't want them to eat grody dead stuff on walks, and you just leave it, right? This dog is leaving it, which is multiple commands. There's a down, there's a stay, there's a leave it. Waiting for it. Not that treat. It's not waiting for that treat. How do you train a dog to do this? You take that treat, you put it on the floor with your foot over it. The dog's sitting, staying, whatever, and you just wait there. Dog comes for it, you step on it. Shutting down expectation, right? Get the dog back, lift it up, dog comes for it, step on it. I keep doing that until the dog stays. Say, oh, good boy. Take something from behind my back. Something better than what was down. Something better than what was down there. There's your students. And that is the grade right there. How do you get them to leave it? What is it that's behind your back that will allow them to stay motivated, engaged enough to leave it? What is the hook? What are the things that fool your students into doing the things you want them to do? On a side note, what do you think happens if while you're training that dog, it beats you to the treat? Well, you've taught the dog a new command, and that is, how fast can I get there? Anytime you dangle a grade as a motivating factor in a class, that's what a student's going to do. How fast can I get there? The thing that's most important is grade. You could untrain that. For dogs, it takes about 2 weeks to untrain a bad behavior. Students, maybe a couple months. I don't know. I don't know how long it takes to untrain them. Maybe a couple years. Okay. In the book, What the Best College Teachers Do, Ken Bain, author, historian, tells the story of Melissa Harris Lacewell. Melissa, at the time, was a political scientist at Stanford. She was designing a course. The course was on Reconstruction, the period immediately after the Civil War. And she wanted to design a course that would help students understand how Reconstruction affected the social, the economical, the cultural realities of the world, and especially for African Americans. And she could just picture this class of first, second year students talking about the Reconstruction, and her image was one of total disengagement, right? And so she decided to think about the design of the course through a question. This was in 2006, a year after Hurricane Katrina hit the Gulf. And so she decided to design the course around the question, what in the world happened with Katrina? How could a Category 3 hurricane, certainly not the strongest hurricane ever to hit that region, essentially wipe out an American city? And so she designed this course around that question, and she called the course Disaster, Race, and Politics. And students signed up that came to class. Maybe it was a big class like this. She did something very sneaky. She did that on the first day. She asked them a simple question. When did the disaster happen? Talking about Katrina. When did the disaster happen? With Katrina in 2005 or with Reconstruction? That was the thing behind it. Hooked so much, in fact, that by the end of the semester, they convinced her to organize trips to New Orleans so that they could actually see in action some of the things that they've been doing. Ken Bain calls these hooks beautiful questions. The types of questions that are thought-provoking, intriguing, beg us to answer them. At the University of Virginia, we run a week-long course design institute, and as part of that institute, we have our participants develop beautiful questions when they're developing their course schedule. I want to give you some time to think about the hook. Those things that capture your students' imagination. Encourage them to get entangled. As you think about these questions, don't think about the questions that your colleague down the hall would find interesting. Think about types of questions where maybe your 80-year-old grandmother would get excited about taking quantum chemistry. Your 17-year-old nephew gets excited about Victorian literature. You'll know when you've got the right question when the person who reads this says, oh, that's really interesting. Take a little time individually, quickly though. Once you maybe have an idea or two, shop it with your neighbor. See what their reaction is. And then, maybe you talk about how could it be a better hook. Take a few minutes. Beautiful questions. What are your beautiful questions? All curious. We want to hear some beautiful questions. What are some great ideas that that you have that you heard, possibly, that you want to share? Yes. Oh. I'm curious of the course. Huh? Yeah, so that's really interesting. How do I get people to do what I want them to do? What's that? But I think it's interesting in terms of context, because I can imagine that intriguing students in that particular course. How would you like to predict everything your girlfriend, boyfriend is going to do? What's the course? Intro to Psychology. So psychology seems to be an easy one, yeah. How to blow things up without getting arrested. Chemistry? Yay! I'm a chemist, so I get that one, yeah. And what course is this? Library science? But it could be any course, really, right? Yeah. Yeah. A couple more, maybe. Maybe anyone over here? Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Can we make roads from pig manure? I'm guessing the answer is yes, yeah. You posted your story, would it balance? Or what do I do to have that happen? How do I contribute to that? Might be interesting. So these are the hooks. This is the promise. This is that thing behind your back that you're getting them to forget about that grade for a while, that you say, hey, here's something possibly worth you investing other resources. But that's just the first part, right? We have to deliver on that promise. In Ken Bain's research he did to create that book, What the Best College Teachers Do, he tried to figure out what do they have in common? What do they do in the classroom? And what he came up with, what he describes, is a natural critical learning environment. Natural critical learning environment. Natural because it seems like it's what we tend to do. You watch any kid learning, and it kind of looks like that. And it begins with questions. I have a young child, and the questions just go, right? And to that child, I think they're probably really beautiful. To us, they often sound mundane, but to them, they're intriguing. But then there's some, in terms of a teaching learning scenario, there's some attempt to help the student really understand the significance of that question. Why does it matter? Why is that an intriguing question? Particularly the one over here about the incarceration of African Americans. The students probably think they know, right? But how do you help them understand that there's more to that question? And that's why I flipped it a little bit. Say, what do I do to contribute to that? And then we want to get them to critically analyze the question, to really tackle it, to do the messy work of learning, and then possibly make an argument about an answer or possible answers and develop the next question. So you can imagine a course being a cycle of questions and a move through this natural critical learning. If to some of you this sounds a whole lot like Kolb's learning cycle, it is. And Bain doesn't talk about whether this was part of the inspiration for his work, but it maps identically onto Kolb's work. And Kolb's work was influenced by Dewey and Piaget. And so there kind of seems to be something to this, right? In Kolb's work, concrete experience, That's the questioning piece. Reflective observation, trying to make sense of this abstraction, critically analyzing it, making sense, and then I'm going to go off and test it, make an argument, and then start the process over again. So what is it about this particular cycle that seems to be natural? I think my battery's about dead. James Zoll wrote a book called The Art of Changing the Brain. Zoll's a biologist. And he asked the very question is, what in the heck is about, why does this work? Is there a biological reason it works? And so he studied the brain a lot, try to figure out what is going on here. Is there a connection between these things? And you can see there's regions of the brain that map to these different areas. The really interesting piece is there's what he called right here a transformation line that runs right through here. If you're not familiar with the structure of the brain, this is the front of the brain, the frontal cortex. It wraps around, and this is the back of the brain, the temporal integrative cortex. There's a transition here, right? If you just stay from here to here, this is just students taking in knowledge and rote memorization and all that kind of stuff. To do meaningful learning, you got to get up into these other regions. And so he said, well, that's not very efficient for a brain to do that if these are separated by all of this distance. Turns out they're not. Besides the connections that connect the two hemispheres in the brain, the superhighway that runs from the frontal integrative cortex to the temporal cortex is the largest. Our brains are wired to make this leap from just taking in knowledge to producing knowledge. So we're already wired to do this. Evolutionarily, it made sense that we needed to take some basic facts and ideas and do something with them. So there's something to this. Let's see what this looks like. Beautiful question, right? I need a volunteer. Someone who's willing to do a little experiment with us. A brave person, right here. You can just stay right there. You stay right there. I need another volunteer who's willing to be a timer. Right here, timer. I need someone who can be a accuracy checker. Oh, come on. That's not a hard job. Accuracy checker. I need one more person. What? Yep, accuracy checker. Now I need someone to be a timer and an accuracy checker. Last one. That's it. I'll pick someone. Yeah. Okay. I'll describe what you're going to do in just a second. I'm going to give. What's your name? What is it? Tori? Tori. I'm going to give Tori a mic. I'm going to use that in just a second. I'm going to show you a series of pairs of numbers. Okay? And those numbers are going to be different in terms of numerical value as well as physical height. Okay? So they're going to be different in those two respects. With this green background, I want you to tell me which number is numerically larger.
6.
6. Yay. Tori got it right. The timer. So you're clear on what you're going to do. Numerically larger. The timer. Where's my timer? As soon as I switch to the first slide, you're going to start the timer. Okay? As soon as I get to the next black slide, you're going to stop the timer. Okay? Got it? My checker. Where was my checker? Over here. You're just going to check to make sure she got the answer right. And if she didn't, just take a tally mark for an error. My timer checker is going to do both of those. Okay. And that will help us just confirm that they're doing their jobs. Okay. Are you ready, Tori? You're going to do it as fast as you can. As soon as you give an answer, I'm going to switch slides. Okay. Yeah. Tori's ready, but you're not. Oh, okay. I'm hijacking her device. Was that an okay, you're ready, or? Oh, no, not quite. Okay. Okay. You ready, Tori? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to actually, there's a keyboard over here. I'm going to switch to the keyboard so I don't have any lag in the. Ready? Go.
5, 3, 9, 7, 6, 9, 8, 9, 4, 8.
My timer. You got the time? What was the time? What do you got? What was your time? Okay. Any errors? You agree? Any errors? No errors. Okay. This time, which one is physically bigger? Okay, so your answer here would be?
2.
2. Okay. Again, same thing. When I start the next slide, start the timer. And then, did you write that time down? Write that time down. We need that time. Okay. So stop the timer once I get to the next black slide. Ready, Tori? Go.
5, 1, 9, 4, 6, 0.
Time. 9. Yeah, it was faster. 9:22. Any errors? No? What did you get for a time? Okay. Okay. Time to multitask. Same series of slides, green and blue. If it's green, numerically larger, blue, physically larger. Do you want to add up our 2 times so far? Get a sum of those 2 times? My timer's ready. Fact checker's ready. Yep. Okay. You ready, Tori?
I am.
Again, stop the timer when I get to the next black slide.
5, 3, 0, 2, 6, 7, 9, 9, 4, 9, 5, 9, 8, 8, 6, 4, 3.
And what was the time? Okay. 22:24. What was the sum? 22 to 20, essentially. What did you get for a time? 25. Okay. Any errors? Any errors? You got them all wrong. 2 errors? 3 errors? What do you suppose would happen if, while Tori was doing that, had the TV blaring? So her time went up by a couple of seconds at least, although it's really iffy over here. I don't know what you were doing. Nope. 20 total both sides. We sum the first two. If mix them all together, same thing, I should get the same time if I can multitask. So when we did all of them together, that total was more than the sum of the two. And actually, you did really well. Most people, it's almost a third more. At the time, is quite a bit. Your job, was that pretty easy? All you had to do is push a button. Start and stop, right? Oh, you're the fact checker. Your job, sorry. Your job was easy? Start and stop. Did you mess it up? Is your...
One time.
Why did you mess it up?
Because
Okay. You were a fact checker, sorry. Your job? Why? Your job. Why not? So when I originally designed this, I thought, oh, the times will be the clincher. And I had my wife and my daughter doing the experiment. My wife said exactly what you did. And I said, that's the better piece of evidence that says, not very good. In a natural critical learning environment, we've asked the question. We've kind of reflected on the question, try to help you understand the question. Now we need to start critically analyzing the question. We're not going to do that today. We start critically analyzing the question. This is part of a course that I'm actually teaching for the first time this fall called The Science of Learning. The entire course is built on Kolb's experiential learning cycle. And the generalization and active testing phases are, what do I do when I learn? And how does that affect my learning? And then I'm going to create a learning plan that helps me learn better, and I can test that. Right? And so that's what they would do here. They would begin to monitor what they do on their own learning and begin to adjust their learning so that they become better learners. To increase what I've been calling their learning literacy. Expect students to learn, but we don't teach them what the biology tells us. It turns out we are better than the monkey. Why is that? At least in this particular type of monkey, which is very closely related to humans, doesn't have the brain structure that's primarily responsible for multitasking, which is this little almond-shaped structure in the front of our brains called the lateral frontal lobe prefrontal cortex. Two little things on both sides. It doesn't have that. So it does not multitask very well. We don't do it very well either. Okay. Where are we at? Let's see. Okay. That was a lot of fun. Thank you all, my volunteers. That was good, especially Tori. Now I got to stand over here to click. I might be distanced too. It's okay. I'm about done. So I'm going to open it up to some questions here. Does all this matter? Right? So is this a form of edutainment? Learning shouldn't be fun, right? It needs to be, there's a structure, there's a tradition to it. Learning is fun. And it can be fun. And it's part of that fun that helps us get entangled around those messy questions. I want to show you one piece of research that is not directly related to engagement, but I think it helps us think carefully about how we use that traditional classroom. A study that was published couple years now out of MIT. What they were experimenting with were wearable sensors that measured electrodermal activity. It turns out that electrodermal activity kind of gives you a time average of brain activity. And you can actually distinguish between cognitive stress, that means your brain's working hard thinking about something, physical stress, you're running, jogging, jumping, and emotional stress, whether you're scared or nervous. You can tell the difference. So what they did is, this is an N of 1, so take it for that. But they strapped it to a college student's arm, left it on his arm for a week, and said, do what you normally do, and in a journal, just record what you're doing at those times of the day, various times. The time scale, which is a little wonky, starts at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and then goes overnight to the next day, 24 hours, 7 days. And this is the brain activity that they recorded. There's this region in green. What do you suppose was going on here? Yeah, sleep. So you look at the timestamp. We know our brains are pretty active at night. We're moving stuff around. We're storing things we learned in the day, organizing, categorizing, encoding. So sleep. What do you suppose is happening here? Oh, you guys are a bunch of, you're jaded. I don't know. No, well, I heard it. TV. Yeah. That's your brain on TV. Right there. Must have been a cliffhanger on that one up there because they got really excited. What's going on here? Yeah. That's your brain on class. You see some spikes in day 6, but there's some other stuff. There's a red line there. There's actually something else happened there. What happened there was an exam. What is all of this? I don't think it was drinking. So for those in the back, studying, lab time, some social, homework. Shouldn't this be what this looks like? The whole idea around the flipped classroom is to take all of this really good cognitive energy, this personal investment in their learning, and put it in here. Our classrooms can be high-impact practices. We got to think different about them. Got to think different about them. What is engaged learning? Well, it's lots of things, and I've touched on a number of them today. I suspect in the other sessions you go to, you're going to pick up on variations of these themes and be able to go a little deeper. The fact of being entangled, beautiful question. Beautiful